Against Wisconsin, when it mattered most, USC was too legit to quit. They made the play.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC, part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day, whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you're downloading this podcast. The show's always free. The show always appreciates your support. Today's episode, it's brought to you by FanDuel. Make your first $5 bet, and you're going to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Quote, I will give them credit. They did a hell of a job in the second half executing and making plays on third down in particular, end quote. That's not me. That wasn't Lincoln Riley. That was Wisconsin's head coach, Luke Fickell, talking about what USC did right to end up pitching a 28-0 shutout after going into halftime down 21-10. Again, he was asked about USC, what changed, what was different. It's like, hey, credit where credit is due. They did a fantastic job. His words were they did a hell of a job. And USC executed. And most importantly, they did it on third down. Pressure time. Hammer time. Like I said, USC, they were too legit to quit. Hey. That's all I'm going to do. Everyone's looking at me like, Mark, dial it back. So here we go. Again, when you're impressing a head coach of the opponent, and I know sometimes it's coach speak, you give credit where credit is due. USC outscored Wisconsin 20-0 in the second half. It was a complete, total domination. USC's offense, USC's offense scored 3 touchdowns in the second half, 2 in the third quarter, 1 in the fourth quarter. Both of those third quarter touchdowns that USC scored happened on third downs. You had the Miller Moss to Jacoby Lane, and you had another one to Deuce Robinson. Not incredibly hard third down conversions. One was 3rd and 6, the other was 3rd and 7. Nevertheless, no risk it, no biscuit. They went for it. They got the touchdowns. Those are back-breaking type of plays. As a defense, you don't ever want to give up a third down, but you sure as hell don't want to give up a third down and let it turn into a touchdown. That's what USC did. But it wasn't just on offense. They dominated on both sides of the ball. If you're an everyday listener to this show, you heard me go over some stats on yesterday's instant reaction or breakdown show. For those of you who missed it, when you're done watching this episode, you can go back, check it out. But you might want to keep these stats in the back of your mind when you're watching. Specifically, those third downs. Wisconsin was just 2 for 10 on their third down conversions. And they were, 1 for 6 in the second half. USC on offense, really, really, really good. If I do it 3 times, it's for emphasis. They converted 13 out of 17 third down attempts. They were perfect on fourth downs, 2 for 2. As Kamari Ramsey said after the game. I asked him, what's up with USC's defense? Why are they able to come through when they're faced with stopping the other team on fourth down? So, USC nutted up. They got the stops. So, again, USC converted both of their fourth down attempts. Wisconsin went for it twice, 0 for 2. Coach Fickell also had this to say after the game. And it's in regards to those fourth down conversions. Quote, we pride ourselves on being able to get a 4th and 1. And I don't care where it's at, backed up in your own territory or not. We got to have an opportunity to establish who we are. He's referring to his offensive line, big, strong, pushing guys around, able to get 1 yard rushing. Well, against USC, they weren't able to do it. The week before against Michigan, USC's defensive line, they missed on a few of those fourth and short situations. And not just the defensive line, USC's defense in general. Just weren't able to get it done. They had a huge one, though, against Wisconsin. And again, happened in the third quarter. Anthony Lucas, Kamari Ramsey kind of met in the middle at the quarterback mesh point with the running back. And yeah, 4th and 1. No gain. USC ball, they took over. And it was so big at the time because on the previous offensive possession for USC, they had scored. They had cut the lead down to 21-17. With that next defensive stop, it took any type of momentum Wisconsin was hoping to gain, took it away, stopped it, squashed it. And eventually, on that next offensive possession for USC, they scored another touchdown, took the lead for good. Game over. All of that stemmed from that 4th down stop. Go back a little bit further. Hank Pepper recovering the muffed fumble by Wisconsin. But these are how things kind of snowball. If you're looking for some, analytical proof to kind of go along with what your eyes are telling you about USC's offensive line challenges, we're talking about being able to convert 3rd downs, 4th downs. Well, if it's 3rd and long, I guess we'll consider 3rd and long, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, or 3rd and 7 plus. USC is really good. They were only good for 50% of the time on third downs with fewer yards to gain. So if it was, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, they were only able to convert half of those. Typically, when you're going for it on 3rd and short, you're trying to run the ball, and it just kind of tells me that the offensive line for USC right now isn't getting that push, for those running backs to open that hole. That's why they're going more to the passing game. But here's the thing: they're struggling in pass protection as well. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how USC's offensive line does next week against Minnesota. The Gophers in their last 2 games against Iowa and Michigan, they lost both of those games. One of them was at home. The other one was in the big house. Minnesota's secondary, when you look at their stats, they're like, oh, we're pretty good. They held both Iowa and Michigan's wide receiver groups to less than 100 yards. Mostly because neither one of those programs can throw the ball very effectively, and their wide receivers just don't scare anybody. USC has one of those groups that does scare another team's secondary. I want to talk about USC's wide receivers, their relationships, and their productivity with USC's offensive line. It's not a coincidence. Both of those groups are struggling. USC's offensive line, the wide receivers, but there's a reason. Obviously, we want to see USC's offensive line do a little bit better, especially in pass protection, giving Miller Moss more time. But if Miller Moss doesn't have the time to sit back there and let the wide receivers get open, it's because the wide receivers don't have the time to finish their routes. And that's why you're seeing a lot of short passes, a lot of dump offs. We're going to kind of explore that a little bit more in the next segment. Hey, NFL fans, you out there? Start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So you know that you're watching the game, you go, oh, whoa, I got this. What's going on? I need to check it out. You can. Now you can check out your latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and a whole bunch more. And you can do it on the same page where you're actually placing your bets. Never used FanDuel before? Cool, not a problem. Go check it out. Here's your chance. You're going to get, if you bet $5, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed. It's that simple. Even if your first $5 bet loses, you still got $200 in bonus bets to use. Guaranteed. How are you going to lose? That's FanDuel.com. Go check it out. So USC's offensive line. I think it's fair to say that they're having some struggles. They haven't been consistent. Probably their best game of the year. You saw glimpses of what they can do against LSU. They obviously were much better at home against Utah State. Michigan, they struggled mightily. They came home against Wisconsin, looked a little bit better. They still had their struggles. I think it's really starting to show up in the passing game. Obviously, Miller Moss getting too many pressures, getting hit too many times, probably getting rid of the ball sooner than he wants to. And I'm not sure if it's having an effect on his throwing motion, but we can go back to that interception against Michigan. He was rushed. And then that interception he threw, the other day, the ball was a little bit short. Zachariah Branch was the intended receiver. Just didn't look good out there. The whole play looked crappy. So, again, I think there is a correlation, not just with the O-line protecting Miller Moss, giving him time to pick out his receiver, not necessarily have to drop off to his first guy. The offensive line has to allow the wide receivers to run their routes. And, if you're saying, well, the wide receivers aren't getting any separation. Well, this might be one of the reasons why. Kind of go hand in hand. When you're trying to create separation, if you're a speedy guy, all right, you want to run by the guy. But if the opponents are running, if they're running a too deep type of coverage, keeping the safeties back, they might get by their initial cornerback cover, but you got a safety back there over the top. And if Miller Moss doesn't have the time to kind of read what's going on and seeing if the safety's biting, he's probably not going to risk it. Not going to take that shot down the field. So where your speedier guys need those a little bit longer time to gain that separation, because typically they're running the routes for those explosive plays. Even those, crossing patterns, those drag routes, they take time to come across. Players, though, like Deuce Robinson, Jacoby Lane, Kyron Hudson, Kyle Ford, they can use their bodies to gain some separation between them and the defender. Because they're bigger, they just put your body between the smaller secondary guy. But again, when you have guys like Zachariah Branch, Jay Fair, Mekhi Lemon, as soon as he's healthy again, they need time to run those routes. When you're coming out of the slot, there's a lot more traffic to deal with. A lot of times you're running through the nickelback, the linebackers, that second level. So it takes a little bit more time to clear through that traffic. Again, some of it is scheme. We can point the finger at the play calling. Lincoln Riley's got a pretty good resume, pretty good reputation, though, with able to scheme guys open, put wide receivers in the NFL, develop quarterbacks. You need some help from your offensive line. Again, it all works together. You can have 5 Zachariah Branches on your roster. Okay. If he doesn't have time to get open, kind of a moot point. Again, I think this is why we're seeing so many of those underneath patterns. The throws into the flat. Those are always going to be open. Those release valves, throwing it to Woody Marks, the tight end out there. I think we need to see some more verticality in these passing routes. And right now, there's some challenges with it. We know you're having problems I would say in order, these are your 3 issues on the offensive line. I know people are saying, well, left tackle's 1A, right guard's 1B. Okay, fair. Right tackle, definitely on the list. So you've got Emmanuel Pignon, who's probably playing the best of the offensive linemen right now. Jonah Monheim. But after that, this is where things are getting a little dicey. Mason Murphy had a better game, a lot better game at home against Wisconsin than he did against Michigan. They didn't have to do any types of substitutions with Elijah Page. He wasn't cramping up in this game. He played the whole game at left tackle. And then again, Mason Murphy was able to stay at his spot at right tackle, Jonah Monheim at center. However, right guard, Lonnie Noah and Amos Talalele, they were rotating in and out, playing musical chairs. Again, you typically do not want to do this with your offensive line, right? You want those guys to play together, create that chemistry. You want that obnoxious communication to go silent, for them to be able to read their other, their teammates' minds. Sure, you always got to talk. You always got to make sure that everybody's got their right assignment, pointing at the right guy. Sometimes they're doing a little bit too much of that. Some of it has to do with the whole substitution pattern, and not necessarily USC, but the defense. I think that's another small component of what's going on, why USC's offense looks so kind of herky-jerky, discombobulated, out of sync. I mentioned it before. I get the fact that when offensive teams substitute, you have to allow for the defensive substitute as well. What I don't like is when it's happening with about 20 seconds left on the play clock and the referee is standing over the ball. He says, oh, okay, well, USC's done substituting. Let me see how long so-and-so needs before they want to decide to substitute. All of a sudden, there's 15, 13 seconds left on the play clock. Hey, you know what, Wisconsin, let's run one of our fat defensive linemen off the field. Take your time, jog, while the other guys are jogging in. It's not incumbent upon the referee to allow the defense to actually get set, get in position, put their hand in the dirt. So there's 6 seconds left on the clock, and now all of a sudden, you're forced to get the snap off quickly or call a timeout. Fix that rule. So again, it's really odd. I don't know if it's odd. I'll call it ironic. Heading into the season, everyone anticipated USC, they're going to be strong at wide receiver. The defense was going to take some time to kind of come along. So again, Lincoln Riley, strong play caller, wide receivers, Miller Moss, step right into the shoes that Caleb Williams left behind. Offense will click. You saw the running game getting involved, the tight ends getting involved. But until that offensive line starts to gel and play up to their abilities, I have to say right now that I think the defense is carrying the team. How crazy is that? USC is a defensive team first. Offense is doing just enough. Hard to believe we're talking about a Lincoln Riley team. But that's actually good news. That's actually good news. Because I have zero doubt. There is zero doubt in my mind that eventually this offense is going to click. I think the offensive line is going to get their stuff together. They will settle in on a right guard. Elijah Page will continue to get more comfortable at left tackle. And then again, Mason Murphy, you just got to stay consistent. Do your job. And again, part of that issue is maybe others are trying to do other people's jobs before they're doing their own. Just kind of throwing it out there, throwing spaghetti against the wall, see what sticks. Bottom line, if you want to protect your quarterback, offensive line has to do well. You want to open up holes for your running backs to gain 150, 60, 70 yards per contest, they got to do their job. And if you want your wide receivers to get open, the quarterback needs more than 1.5 Mississippis to throw the ball. And that's kind of where they're at right now. 1 Mississippi, 2. And it's before you can finish that second Mississippi, Miller Moss is already looking to get rid of the ball. Typically, you want at least 3 Mississippis. Speaking of Mississippi, did you see the latest AP poll that came out? Yeah, someone got upset. Someone got beat over the weekend. We're going to talk about the new AP Top 25 poll. I'm not going to bring up the coaches poll because it sucks. I really want to say something else, but it has lost all legitimacy. It's terrible. Absolutely god-awful bad. Just put it in the round file already. First of all, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't contribute to the playoffs. That has its own committee. The AP poll at least has a little bit of legitimacy left. You're talking about writers who are watching the games, parts of the games, some of the games, not all of them. But it gives them a chance to, I think they have more of an opportunity to kind of peek in and see what a team looks like. The coaches that are voting in those coaching polls, they don't. Their SIDs are doing it. Some GA is casting their ballot. So that's all we're going to talk about with the coaches poll. We're going to talk about the AP poll that was just released. And where did USC end up in the latest one? Let's do this first. When was the last time you went to a concert, comedy show, any live event, USC football game? All the games are, they're not all sold out. You still have a chance to buy tickets to Rutgers and Notre Dame. Check this out, though. If you are going to get a ticket, Game Time has this new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets for your favorite event even easier. And Game Time is really easy to use. Game Time Picks filters out all the flubs. It's only going to show you these really incredible deals on great seats, and that way you're not going to waste your time looking through 1,000 different other offers, different seats. They're just going to give you the best. All right. Well, how many of you used Game Time to get your tickets this year? I know a few people. They said, "Mark, thank you. It was easy, and I even used your code to get $20 off." Well, if you haven't been to a game yet, why not? Don't waste any more time. This is a really good team. Go check them out. You already know how much I love to see their feature where you can see your seat before you check out. You should use that too. With the Game Time guarantee, you're always going to get the best price. And if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED ON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So let's go over the new AP poll top 25. First guys, you got Alabama at number 1, Texas at number 2. So Alabama jumped Texas, even though Texas won. Ohio State 3, Tennessee moves up to number 4. Georgia drops to number 5. Oregon, 6. Penn State, 7. They come to town in a couple weeks. Miami, number 8. They're traveling to play Cal this weekend up in Berkeley. I'm going to go with Cal in this game. You got Missouri at number 9. Michigan back up at number 10. Here comes USC, number 11. Up 2 spots for number 13. Ole Miss, they dropped 6 spots. They lost their number 6 spot. Now number 12. Our good friends in Baton Rouge, LSU, number 13. Notre Dame checks in at 14. Clemson, look at that, number 15. Then you got Iowa State, 16. BYU at 17. Utah drops to 18 after Arizona went into Salt Lake City and won. Oklahoma, how are my good friends in Norman feeling today? Rough weekend. You came back and beat Auburn. Now you're at number 19. I'm not even sure you deserve to win that game, but credit where credit is due. Kansas State at 20. Boise State 21. Louisville 22. They lost a tough one to Notre Dame over the weekend. Indiana finally jumps in at number 23. Illinois 24. And look at UNLV, number 25. Quarterback wants to redshirt for the rest of the year. No problem. Next guy up, UNLV didn't skip a beat. I wonder if they're underranked right now. They're a good team. They play offense and defense. So looking at the poll, do you have a problem with the top 5? For me, I'm okay with Alabama number 1. They have looked really impressive. Remember, they went into Madison, Wisconsin, dropped 42 points. They hosted Georgia, and they were up big. They gave up the lead. Alabama took the lead back again. It was a great game if you had a chance to watch it. I think Georgia might be slightly overrated at number 5. Remember, they struggled at Kentucky as well. Eked out that win. Kentucky's not ranked. Not sure why. They just went into Oxford, Mississippi, and beat Lane Kiffin's team for the first time since, I think, 1978 in Mississippi. I'm okay with USC at number 11. I can cherry pick 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and say, hey, these guys are flawed. USC should be ahead of so-and-so. I'm not going to make the argument. Yeah, Michigan beat USC in Ann Arbor. We got some help, a lot of help from the officiating, but they got the win. That's all that matters. I think Missouri is really overrated. Again, I think Miami, first of all, they needed big time help. I don't know how you overturn the call. You ruled it a touchdown on the field. There was nothing on that video instant replay that said, Miami caught the ball. Penn State had a solid win over the weekend. They beat a pretty good Illinois team in Happy Valley. They're going to welcome the Bruins into town this weekend. I think Deshaun Foster's a really good guy. I think one day he'll probably be a good coach. He was given a poop sandwich, and he's got to hold on to it right now. Chip Kelly did him no favors, left him no talent on that roster. They were actually pretty competitive with Oregon in the Rose Bowl, but they're not going to do. I'll be shocked if they give Penn State a game next week. And I'm bringing it up because the week after, Penn State comes back to LA, where USC will host them. This weekend, USC is traveling to Minnesota. Talked about that earlier in the show. Minnesota gave Michigan all they can handle in Ann Arbor. In fact, Minnesota had a chance in that game. Had a really good chance. So we'll see how USC does on the road for the second time in the Big Ten Conference. Again, I'm fine with them at number 11, just ahead of Mississippi. But if USC can come home 4-1, assuming Penn State is going to remain undefeated, that's going to be that could end up being a nice matchup between two top 10 teams when that game rolls around. We'll see what happens. So there you go. USC, number 11 in the country. More of a defensive team than an offensive team. I don't know if anybody had that on their bingo card this year. But it's a balanced team. They're more well-rounded. This is a team that can compete. They don't quit. Like I said at the top of the show, MC Hammer, they're too legit to quit. Hey. So we'll see what USC does this week. They got practice, and they're going to head out for Minnesota. Hopefully they'll get some guys back. I don't know if Makai Lemon will get released yet. That was, again, cheap shot by Michigan. Hopefully Achille Arnold. We'll see if we can get an injury update for our next show on Eric Gentry. All hands on board. But next man up. That's the mentality. Look what USC's defense did in this game at home after Bear Alexander decided to quit on his team. By the way, his name hasn't been removed from the roster yet. I can tell you he is no longer on the team. I got that from a really good source. I'm going to hit up my source for some more information. And that's why you come back and you watch the show every single day. coming at you 5 times a week. Give you my instant reaction after the game. So you're actually getting Mark 6 times a week now. Become an everyday viewer. Become an everyday listener if you haven't already. If you're watching on YouTube, it's quick, it's easy, it's free. Click that red subscribe button. Smash that thumbs up. Both things help the show continue to grow. And so you don't miss any information, click that bell notification button. And that way you have everything you need to know about USC every day of the week. And when you're done making Locked On USC your first listen every day, get on over there to wearesc.com. Got a lot of content for you, a lot of recruiting information for you. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.